Lacrosse community, my name is Ryan Berns. I'm the president of the Lacrosse Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse to ultimately recognize the skills you gain from the sport to live your best life possible. We're so fortunate to be joined by Lynn University head coach Brian Kingsbury. Brian's had a phenomenal time with lacrosse, been able to really embrace life, and now he's able to share his story with us. Brian, thank you so much for being here today. For our community that isn't quite aware of your story and where you are, can you share a little bit more about how you got into lacrosse and where you are now?
Yeah, Ryan, really appreciate you having me on. It's an honor to be recognized by you and your Instagram followers and Facebook followers. Me, I was born and raised in Maryland, and I had a lacrosse stick in my hand about age 5. And a little funny story, I grew up in a town called Smyrna Park, and my mom was driving by. I have an older brother, 4 years older. My mom was driving by the Severn School, and it's right on the road, and she saw this game that she never saw before. You know, she was raised down in South Georgia where football ruled, and she just stopped and rolled down the window and started yelling at the people that are practicing. It was like, hey, what's that sport? And they're like, what's happening? Like cars behind us, like honking. I'm embarrassed as a little 5-year-old. What's the sport you're playing? Lacrosse. Oh, okay. And then that's how I got into lacrosse. Was basically a different way for my brother and I to play sports and be outside and understand all the aspects that you learn from a team sport, you know, from physical development, communication, you know, and that just led into my whole entire track of being a player, raised in Smyrna Park, great coaching in that rec league there, the Green Hornets. I'm sure it's changed since then with all the influx of club programs going on. But, you know, in that area, you have All-Americans, you know, Mr. Marchant, Milford Marchant was my coach for quite a long time. And his son was an All-American midfielder at Hopkins. But Mr. Marchant knew a lot about the game. And then going to St. Mary's High School in the MIAA under Jim Moorhead, Rob White, Coach Codd, you know, they have an incredible amount of IQ, and playing in that level with, you know, Calvert Hall, BL, Gilman, St. Paul's, even Severn as your arch rival. You know, you're always, you know, that whatever it was, Friday, Tuesday games, you have to be ready to go day in, day out. Got recruited, went to Hofstra for a year and a half, and then came back to Maryland. Mom got sick and got a little closer to home. Was coached by Danowski at Hofstra, Billy Wilson, Seth Tierney, Sean Smith, and at Maryland by the big man, rest in peace, Dick Adele, Scotty Marr. He was up at Albany, Dave Slafkowski, Frosty, a whole bunch of great coaches to learn from. And just different leadership techniques and styles of all those coaches that you have. Took a little sabbatical after college at Maryland. You know, played in every single game, was unsung hero. Recognized as a senior just from my hard work. I'm small in stature, especially for a defenseman. But my hard work got me to that D1 level and being able to compete against the big boys. Had a little sabbatical, went out to Colorado, whitewater raft guide for five seasons, and then that seasonal life of living in the winter, you know, in Park City, being a ski bum, working at the Marriott, doing sales, and traveling in the fall with a ski film company called Warren Miller Entertainment. And then that was a lot of fun, just being an MC on the stage, introducing the film, you know, behind the scenes eventually as a road manager. And I've traveled quite a bit extensively down in Central South America and a few times over to Europe as well. But through all that, I just sort of discovered, I was like, my body started wearing down. I was like, what can I do in my life that doesn't require my my body, but also one of my best friends, I call him Nord, he's from Norway. He said, hey, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? Money didn't exist. What would you do? And that's when I was like, I would coach lacrosse. That's my passion. And the reasons why I would want to coach lacrosse is so I can help younger folks grow up into their own and understand who they are through the sport of lacrosse. I have the ability and IQ and understanding of the X's and O's, but also that emotional intelligence of how to handle myself and understand others, to be able to help guide them, to mentor them into their next stages of life. And it went from youth lacrosse to volunteer at UMass, to GA at Castleton, to a head coach at Castleton, to head coach at St. Mike's, all part-time. And then Lynn University opened up full-time 9 years ago, and I applied, and they were impressed, and I took the job and started the program from scratch. And it's been amazing. Just in 2019 and 21, 2020 was canceled due to COVID, but 19 was an incredible year, winning the regular season conference championship. And then this year, going toe to toe with the number 2 team in the country, losing by a goal, and a whole bunch of accolades that we had, from player of the year at the face-off X, Dryden Browse, to 5 all regions and 12 all conference guys, and the freshman of the year in conference with Jalen Stanton. But those are, like, that happens with behind the scenes stuff, building a culture and good dudes, recruiting good dudes who want to work hard.
Brian, I love hearing that the story started as a little bit of humor with your mom screaming at a football field or the lacrosse field and finding out what the sport was. And I think that's what's exciting about the sport. We see it from afar and we go, what is that? And then you start getting involved, and the passion starts to really form, and we love it. But you get so many fantastic skills from it. You talked about the physical development, the just bond and communication, accountability, discipline. There's so many things that go into this, especially if you have great leaders and coaches, which it sounds like you've had, and now you're passing it on and allowing the next generation of players to come up to become strong men and leaders in their own communities. Throughout your time with lacrosse, is there a moment or a couple moments that really stick out to you as moments that you like to look back on fondly, and we call them pinnacle moments?
As a player or as a coach?
I'd love to hear both if you have one, or one or the other.
Well, I think with leading towards leadership, it's I think intrinsically people understand what's good and wrong, or bad, like what's right and wrong, and what I would say as a leader is just the ability to stand up for the right when the wrong is present. And that can be really challenging for a lot of folks to be able to do that. One, because they're like, I could see myself doing that. Is that wrong? Or like to an extreme, be like, yo, that's wrong. I got to do something, but I'm afraid. And I think that's part of the things that I really like about trying to get the younger folk as a coach on to helping them have the courage to stand up for what's wrong. And that's part of a book that really influenced me. It's called Seasons of Life. I think Jeffrey Marks wrote it about Joe Ehrmann and his path. Joe Ehrmann was a football player with the Baltimore Colts, not the Indianapolis Colts, a long time ago. Defenseman, just a really big, big dude, and raised in Buffalo by his dad. It seems from the book it was pretty abusive, but he had something called the idea of masculinity was false. So it was called false masculinity. Like checking account, who you date, how successful you are on the field would define you as a man. And when Joe was at his with the Colts, he lost his younger brother. And then he was like, I have all the money, all the success in the world. Why is this not happening for me? And then he got into the ministry and then went to school, understood more about God and and the teachings of of the religion, and came up with what he defined as masculinity, and as being empathetic, being courageous to lead for others, and that's something that really stuck to me. And I was like, this is great, and they talk about like their Gilman football team and how they always tell each other, hey, I love you, man, as a teammate. Or, if there's someone sitting alone in the cafeteria, a lot different than college, but still similar. But if you see someone consistently sitting alone at the lunchroom table, like invite them over, be a good dude, and try to start the conversation and include people, being more inclusive than exclusive. And those are the type of leaders that I really like behind the scenes, and that's sort of who I strive to be. Obviously, there's leaders, as a player, just being the hoorah type of guy, like I'm gonna put my head through a wall, football style, or hey, I'm gonna take the ball, put the team on my back. Those type of leaders that are just gonna do it. So leaders behind the scene, there's so many different styles of leadership. Like the silent leaders that are just like, I'm gonna lead by example. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna crush a sprint. I'm gonna hit the wall. People are gonna see me do this stuff. The leaders that just natural leaders because they're really good at the sport. Like you're all American. That's a natural leader. What kind of leader is that natural leader going to be? Is it going to be hey, I'm going to be like a Michael Jordan and I'm going to grind and beat everyone out? Or, like Allen Iverson that didn't even really practice. What kind of leader do you want to be? And that's some different types of leadership that I really like. Pinnacle moment, I think that was the question. 2019 was really awesome. And I felt like that was a year where I saw all the hard work of starting up a program from scratch come to fruition, where those folks, the seniors, bought in. The culture was set, and they were there for each other. It was such a tight bond of dudes. It was one of the best teams I've ever been a part of, as a coach, as a player, just because they were very mature leaders. And from those folks that have graduated, all have jobs. One has passed buds as a Navy SEAL. One just texted me and said that he's just took the reins of director of sales for a manufacturing company. But for those folks, I would say that was the pinnacle. And, winning the regular conference season championship, beating our, rival Tampa, we beat them. And that was a regular season. We also, that was a pretty good pinnacle, not necessarily because it was on the field winning, but the folks that made it happen to win. Like we're definitely overachieving, I would say. Lynn's an incredible spot, great location, great field and set up locker room. But the culture that we have here is pretty unique and awesome.
What's coming up for me right now, Brian, is that everyone has that will to win, but not everyone has the will to prepare to win. And those wins happen because of all the work that you're talking about, the behind the scenes, that culture that you're really cultivating and creating the good dudes. This is unbelievable, the idea of that false masculinity, and I don't think it's been brought up in this conversation. So I'd love to hear how you're having conversations with your players and starting to break that down and build the culture of your team.
Yeah, I think, the first thing in my pillars of my program or my culture is respect. And it's also a question that, the deep conversations I'd have in my younger days with my good friends. If I could teach one person one thing, or my kid one thing, what would it be? It's respect, and that's respecting yourself and those around you. And that starts, like no means no, with peer pressures of any kind. And it starts with that conversation, and then we start to get deeper into what's it mean to be a man, and intervening when things aren't good. At college is a lot different. I'm not sure what you know, your listeners are like the age range, so I'm trying to make it G-rated. But there's you know, just what it means, and it's, you can say what does it mean to be a man, what does it mean to be a woman, what does it mean to be non-binary, whatever it is. I'm just saying what it means, because I work with young men, or false masculinity, you know, like, but it basically just comes down to respecting yourself, knowing who you are, and being a good dude. Your parents did a good job. They taught you right and wrong, you know, and it can be very easy to like go towards this is an easier route to take, you know, or my assistant coach said that one person is not bad, but a group can be a bunch of idiots, you know, like if you have, hey, we're in a group, oh, that person did something, then it's like that riot type crowd, you know, where if you take any of those individuals, chances are they're not going to do what they just did. So that would be, you know, like stepping up when things are wrong. False masculinity, trying to stick back on that. You know, like it's really difficult with social media and advertisements and showing the successes or pop music, you know, pop culture. You know, this is what it means to be a man, you know, but if you look at your dad, you know, and that's raising you or raised you as a person, as a son, as a daughter, you know, it's just doing the right thing, being empathetic for others, caring for I can't find the word, like your other beings, I guess, you know, just being caring. But that, you know, like, oh, you're soft. No, you can still compete. You can still get out on your field. You can get out there and do the hard work that people don't see. So you can make the pass. So you can get the ground ball. So you can put your shoulder into someone. So you can sting the corners. So you can, you know, just communicate on the field. You know, that being a man doesn't necessarily mean that you can't put your shoulder into someone and hit them. You know, like you can still do that. You can still be competitive on the field. You can still chirp a little bit, you know, that is not derogatory, but good. You know, like, hey, I'm better than you. And you can make it as simple as that. Or if someone does something bad, be like, hey, man, that's wrong. You know, it doesn't have to be like, and that's kind of difficult, like separating the emotion out of what is going with right and wrong. Hey, man, that's wrong. Don't do that. You know, I think that's pretty, a good start for a lot of those folks. But I'm still trying to cycle back to that. Yeah, you know, just caring for others, leading courageously, being empathetic, are some really strong points of being a man.
It's so big, and what I'm taking from this, Brian, is that respecting yourself first and others. And when we talk about no means no, regardless of the peer pressure, for me, that's saying you have a line of integrity. There, you know what's right and wrong personally based off your upbringing, what we're able to learn, and the community at large. And that's why coaches, I think, have such a vital role in developing these young men, is helping to define what's right or wrong, especially when there's so many different avenues that people are digesting information. Like you said, social media and the ads themselves are just brutal sometimes, and how direct they are, sometimes misleading, and that can cause anxiety in folks, and the kids don't necessarily know what is right, what is wrong, and that's where, when you have a strong group or community around them to encourage them to step into the right place, to be inclusive, to be empathetic for others, I think that's a big deal. And I love that you really focused on this idea of respect, because it seems like it's such a big part of what we need right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up. You know, and that's part of it. Once you can respect, you know yourself, you respect yourself, and then you can start respecting others. And you know that's the building block. You know, and once you start respecting others, it will go into the game. I respect my teammate. I respect my coach. I respect the referee. I respect the other team. I respect the other team's coach. You know, it just continues to go. And once you do that, and if it's a mutual line of respect, then there's harmony in a way. And that's when we are, you know, honoring the creator's game. That's why we're on here. It's lacrosse. It's the creator's game. And back to the roots of it, like, if you play it like Lars Tiffany after the game said great things about, this is the creators game, that it's such an honor to be on the field representing these folks and our histories together on Memorial Day weekend. It's that's something I really, I'm a Terp. Do I want to see Virginia win? No, I don't. But I respect the heck out of Lars for doing what he did, and what he said and how he respects the game and where it came from.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We know you're up to some amazing things, taking the program from nothing to where you are today, staying extremely competitive, and it's the culture and it's the work that you've been doing behind the scenes that's going to continue to make a difference in a lot of people's lives. Do you have any last thoughts or anything you'd like to share with our community about lacrosse or leadership or just life as a whole?
Yeah, once it took me quite a long time to figure out what I was, maybe 26 when I was like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life. So I would say just explore as many different positive environments and avenues to figure out what's truly yours. And that, it can be from being coached by 10 different coaches. At least you'll have the variety. When I coach goalies, it's like, hey, I'm going to tell you what I know. And you can take one piece of this and apply it to your game. And that's what it is. It's your game. You have to figure out what your game is, your style is. It's not, hey, I want to be that person. Because if you try to be that person, you're not going to be yourself. And you're not going to be real. So just be true to yourself. Be a good person, and look out for others. And I appreciate you bringing me on. And hopefully some folks can take some little pearls of information and can be a leader in their own way.
I'm sure they are. We're all going to take little pieces from this, Brian. Thanks again. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, Ryan. Thank you very much.